Welcome to Historical. Tonight, we have two tales to carry you into the dark. Relax, breathe, and let the stories take over. Story 1. I've worked the night shift at the county hospital for 7 years now. It's a routine that settles into your bones. The quiet drive home at 5 a.m. The way the sky starts to bleed that pale, bruised purple just as I'm pulling into my gravel driveway. I live about 20 minutes outside of town, nestled against a thick patch of pine forest that borders the property line. It's supposed to be peaceful. That's why I bought the place. I like the solitude, the way the world feels smaller and more manageable when you're surrounded by trees. But for the last 2 weeks, the mornings haven't felt peaceful. It started with a pattern in the dirt. My driveway is mostly packed gravel, but there's a soft patch right where I stand to dig my keys out of my pocket before unlocking the driver's side door. One Tuesday, I noticed a series of deep, heavy indentations in the earth, a perfect, continuous circle, like someone had been pacing back and forth in the exact same spot for hours. I shrugged it off. Maybe the neighbor's kid was messing around, or maybe a stray dog had been circling a scent. I smoothed it out with my boot and didn't think much of it. By Thursday, the circle was back, deeper this time. It wasn't just a faint impression. The earth was compressed, hardened, as if something heavy had been pressing down with rhythmic intent. I found myself staring at it while I stood there in the pre-dawn silence, my coffee cup still warm in my hand. It was unsettling, seeing the evidence of someone or something waiting for me. I told myself it was just a prank. Some kids trying to freak out the nurse who lives alone in the woods. I even checked the perimeter of the house, scanning the tree line, but there was nothing. Just the pines, swaying gently in the wind, and the creeping feeling that the woods were closer than they had been the night before. Saturday was the day the dread really started to set in. I finished my shift, tired and heavy-lidded, just wanting to crawl into bed. When I pulled up the drive, the sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the gravel. The circular indentation was there again, but this time it was surrounded by smaller, erratic marks. It looked like someone had been pacing, then stopped, then started pacing again in a frantic, disjointed rhythm. I stood by my car, the engine ticking as it cooled, and felt a sudden, sharp prickle at the base of my neck. I looked toward the edge of the woods. I'm not a person who scares easily. I've seen enough in the ER to know that the human mind can conjure up all sorts of things when it's exhausted. Maybe I was just tired, but I swear I saw a figure standing right at the tree line. It wasn't moving, just standing there, perfectly still, like it was waiting for me to acknowledge it. It was too tall, its proportions slightly off, and the way it stood against the backdrop of the pines felt wrong. I blinked, my heart hammering against my ribs, and when I looked again, the space was empty. Just the trees, just the morning mist. But I knew then that the pacing wasn't about the driveway. The pacing was about me. I didn't go inside right away. I sat in my car for a long time, hands locked on the steering wheel, listening to the silence of the woods. It felt heavy, suffocating. I started keeping the lights on in the kitchen and the porch, even during the day. I checked the locks 3, maybe 4 times before I went to bed. Every time I looked out the window, I expected to see that figure, but the driveway stayed empty. The days blurred into a cycle of anxiety, going to work, bracing for the drive home, and scanning the woods until my eyes burned. Last night, the shift at the hospital was particularly brutal, and I didn't get home until nearly 6 a.m. I was so exhausted, I barely registered the driveway until my tire hit a soft spot, causing the car to jolt. I stepped out, my legs feeling like lead, and looked down. The circle was gone. In its place were rows of deep, distinct indentations leading from the woods, right up to the driver's side door. And then, for the first time, a set of marks leading toward the house, stopping right at the front porch steps. I didn't move. I couldn't move. My hand was hovering over the door handle, the keys digging into my palm. The silence of the morning felt different now, stripped of its usual comfort. It was a listening silence, a waiting silence. I stood there, not knowing what to do, staring at the tracks in the dirt. They weren't footsteps. They were round, heavy, and spaced out with a deliberate, rhythmic cadence. I turned slowly, looking toward the house, and saw that the front door was standing just a fraction of an inch open. I've never left it unlocked. I am obsessive about it. My stomach dropped, that cold, hollow feeling taking over. I retreated to my car, my movements jerky and uncoordinated, and started the engine. I didn't go inside. I didn't call out. I just backed out of the driveway, my breath hitching in my throat, and drove until I reached the main road. I've been sitting here in a diner parking lot for 3 hours, watching the sun climb higher, terrified of what I'd find if I went back. I still don't know how to explain this, but I can still feel the weight of those eyes from the woods, and I can't shake the memory of that slight gap in the front door. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me, or maybe I was just tired, but I'm not going back there. Not today, and maybe never again. Story 2. The woods were supposed to be a reset for my brother, Elias. He'd been struggling with the kind of corporate burnout that makes you feel like you're fading out of your own life. So he took a week to solo camp in the Bitterroot Range. When he pulled into the driveway 7 days later, he looked exactly like the person who had left. Same faded flannel, same 3-day stubble, same heavy, tired eyes. I was relieved. We had dinner, talked about the trail conditions, and he laughed at a joke I made, though the sound was a little clipped, like a digital recording played at the wrong speed. I chalked it up to exhaustion. Being out there alone for a week does things to your social battery. The first night home, I woke up around 2:00 a.m. to get water. I passed his room and saw the light was still on. I stopped in the doorway, thinking I'd remind him to get some sleep, but I froze. Elias was sitting bolt upright on the edge of his bed, staring directly at the floral pattern on the wallpaper. He wasn't blinking. He wasn't moving. He looked like a mannequin posed in a display window, his stillness so absolute that it made the air in the room feel heavy, like the pressure before a thunderstorm. "Elias," I whispered, my voice sounding too loud in the quiet house. He didn't flinch. I walked closer, my heart picking up a frantic, uneven rhythm, and waved my hand in front of his face. His pupils didn't dilate. It felt like I was standing next to a dead battery, a hollow space where a person should be. Finally, he turned his head, not with the fluid motion of a human, but in a series of tiny, mechanical jerks, and looked at me. His expression was completely blank, as if he were trying to recall the concept of a human face from a database he couldn't quite access. "I am thirsty," he said. The voice was his, but the inflection was off, hitting the wrong syllables. "You okay, man?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You're scaring me." He stared at me for a long, agonizing minute. His mouth moved, testing the air, and then he paused, his brow furrowing as if he were translating my name from a dead language. I know you," he said, his voice dropping into a register that sounded like grinding gravel. "Brother, you are the brother." I tried to tell myself he was just suffering from severe sleep deprivation, or maybe a concussion from a fall. But the next few days turned that theory into dust. He stopped eating. He stopped leaving his room. He spent 18 hours a day sitting on the floor, staring at that same spot on the wall, his breathing so shallow it was almost impossible to hear. The worst part was the way he looked at our family photos. He'd pick one up, hold it at arm's length, and trace the faces with his thumb, his movements jerky and precise. Once, I caught him holding a picture of our mom. He wasn't smiling, he was vibrating. There was this low-frequency hum coming from his chest, something I felt in my teeth rather than heard. When he saw me, he dropped the photo and hid his hands behind his back. "Where is it?" I asked him yesterday, cornering him in the kitchen. "What happened out there in the woods, Elias? Did you fall? Did you hit your head?" He just looked at the refrigerator, his eyes glazing over as he focused on a speck of dust. "The space was thin," he murmured, his voice faint. "The trees have a different shape when you step through the static. I'm practicing, you know. It takes a while to get the tension of the skin right. It's hard to remember how to fit inside." I stepped back, nearly tripping over the kitchen rug. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to the space I occupied, as if he were trying to calibrate his presence to match the room. He didn't seem to notice the fear radiating off me. He was too busy twitching his fingers, practicing the mechanics of holding a coffee mug he didn't even want. Last night, I heard him moving in his room. It wasn't the sound of a person walking. It sounded like someone dragging a heavy, wet sack across the floorboards. I grabbed my phone and crept to his door, pushing it open just an inch. Elias wasn't in his bed. He was pressed flat against the wall, his limbs bent at angles that shouldn't have been possible, his back arched like a bow. He was pushing his face into the wallpaper, his mouth open wide, tasting the drywall. He was murmuring, a rapid-fire sequence of clicks and whistles that sounded like wind rushing through pine needles. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just backed away slowly and locked my own bedroom door. I'm sitting here now in the dark, listening to him pace the hallway. Every few minutes, he stops outside my door and taps on the wood, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. He taps 3 times, pauses, and then says, I remember the brother. The brother is waiting. I don't know what came back from the mountains. I don't know if the real Elias is trapped somewhere in that static, or if he's just a skin someone or something is wearing to learn how to exist in our world. I've tried calling his phone, but it goes straight to voicemail. Even when he's sitting in the kitchen, I don't hear a phone ring. I don't sleep anymore. Every time I look at my reflection, I find myself blinking just to make sure I'm still the one in control. I'm starting to wonder if I'm waiting for him to break down the door, or if I'm just waiting for him to finally get the human rhythm right. I don't think he's going to stop practicing until he gets it perfect. And once he does, I don't think there will be any room left for the person he used to be.